In part 1 of this module, we will introduce the concept of stress, trauma, and adversity. This video will also cover how our body reacts to stress, and how it impacts young people and their learning. Stress, trauma, and adversity are common experiences that many individuals encounter in their lives. These challenging circumstances can have a profound impact on our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Although stress, trauma, and adversity can all be overwhelming, they present opportunities for growth, resilience, and personal development. By recognizing and addressing these experiences, individuals can also learn to cope, heal, and thrive. To begin, stress refers to the body's response to situations that require adjustment or adaptation. It is our natural response to the demands and pressures encountered in our daily lives, and it often subsides once the stressor is resolved or removed. In most situations, stress is manageable, temporary, and it motivates us to take action and perform better. On the other hand, trauma refers to a more severe response to an overwhelming event that exceeds an individual's ability to cope. Trauma often results from serious adversities that disrupt our sense of safety, stability, and challenge our ability to navigate life's obstacles. The impact of trauma on an individual can be understood within the 3 E's framework, which includes the nature of the traumatic event, the individual's experience of the event, and the adverse effects of such event. Traumatic events can take many forms, such as witnessing violence, natural disasters, accidents, or the loss of a loved one. These events can be sudden and unexpected, or they can occur over a prolonged period, such as in cases of childhood maltreatment or growing up in a dysfunctional household. The experience of trauma can vary widely depending on the individual and the nature of the event. Whether actual or perceived, the event is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening. Some common reactions to a traumatic experience include fear, helplessness, and horror. These reactions can also manifest as physical and behavioral responses, such as nausea, dizziness, and withdrawal from daily activities. The effects of trauma can be long-lasting and impact all aspects of an individual's well-being, ranging from physical and mental health to cognitive and social functioning. Social, psychological, and cultural factors can also shape how a person might be affected by the event. This explains why 2 people experiencing the same event can have very different responses and outcomes. Other important factors to consider include age and developmental stage, personality, and previous life experiences. Stress and trauma can profoundly impact the brain and body, leading to a range of physiological responses and changes. When we experience daily stresses, such as meeting tight deadlines or getting into an argument with a friend, our body enters into a state of heightened arousal that prepares the body to respond to the perceived threat. This is commonly known as the fight or flight response, which typically resolves when the stressor goes away. However, this natural stress response can become overwhelmed by a traumatic experience, especially when the individual cannot cope with, resolve, or remove themselves from the threatening event. Over time, the part of the brain that is responsible for processing emotions becomes overactive, which means an individual can become fearful and anxious even in non-threatening situations. In essence, the individual becomes more likely to perceive danger and see the world as unsafe, even when there is no real or actual danger. In other cases, the response system becomes so overwhelmed that it shuts down altogether, leading to numbness, lack of emotions, dissociation, and withdrawal. Many studies show that traumatic stress takes a significant toll on the body, leading to a weakened immune system, digestive and cardiovascular issues, sleep disturbances, hormonal imbalance, and many other health problems. Individuals exposed to trauma are also more likely to engage in health risk behaviors for temporary relief, such as smoking, drinking, or other substance misuse. The emotional and physical responses to a traumatic event can last for weeks to months. In general, if responses worsen or last longer than 1 month after the event, the person may be suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. The symptoms of PTSD broadly include recurrent and intrusive memories of the event such as nightmares or flashbacks, avoidance of trauma-related reminders, including people, places, or objects. An increased reactivity, such as being hypervigilant or easily startled. A more challenging presentation of post-traumatic stress response is known as complex PTSD. This is characterized by all the symptoms of PTSD and includes additional symptoms often brought on by prolonged or repeated interpersonal trauma that occur in early life. These additional symptoms includes difficulty managing emotions, negative self-concept such as feeling worthless, and disturbances in connecting or maintaining relationships with others. It is clear that having a challenging childhood can profoundly impact how an individual responds to adversity as an adult because it influences how they see the world, themselves, and their relation to others. Trauma and adversity is especially harmful for children and young people because they have not yet developed the skills and resources to effectively cope with stressors on their own, and often rely on caring adults for support and stress buffering. We use the term toxic stress to describe prolonged or excessive stress that occurs in the absence of supportive relationships or protective factors. What makes toxic stress particularly harmful for children and young people is that it disrupts the normal development of their brain and other organ systems. This disruption can lead to a range of lifelong physical, emotional, and cognitive problems, such as a reduced ability to regulate emotions and form healthy relationships. Many brain studies have shown that these changes are real and directly observable, and increase the risk of developmental delays and mental health conditions later in life, such as depression and anxiety. Toxic stress occurs when a young person experiences serious, prolonged, or repeated stressors that undermine their sense of safety, security, and stability. These stressful and potentially traumatic events are widely known as adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. In 2009, the World Health Organization compiled a list of 13 ACEs. They include different forms of childhood maltreatment, serious household dysfunction, and violence outside the home experienced before age 18. Although this is not an exhaustive list of all possible ACEs, they were included by the World Health Organization as they were considered relevant, measurable, and actionable by governments across cultural, social, and economic settings. In one study, we randomly surveyed 1,070 Hong Kong adults by telephone. Among them, 61% said they had at least one ACE, and 24% had 3 or more ACEs. What this means is that every person that we meet is more likely than not to have had some negative experience growing up, and nearly 1 in 4 people probably had a very difficult childhood. Although the exact rates of childhood trauma are difficult to measure, the negative impact of ACEs is widely recognized. More than 2 decades of research have shown that exposure to ACEs increases the risk for poorer mental, behavioral, physical, and social health across the lifespan. There is also a dose-response relationship between the number of ACEs and the magnitude of those risks. Put simply, the more ACEs a child experiences, the more likely they are to have poorer outcomes as adults. It is important to note that ACEs do not determine these outcomes, but it certainly increases their risks. For young people, ACEs can negatively impact a wide range of educational outcomes. Youths who have experienced childhood adversity are more likely to struggle academically because trauma disrupts healthy development of the brain regions involved in learning and memory. As a result of this, students may experience more difficulties with attention, memory, and executive functioning. These learning difficulties can affect their ability to learn and succeed in school. They are also more likely to exhibit challenging behaviors, such as aggression, hyperactivity, and defiance, which can lead to disciplinary issues and school suspensions. However, it is also reassuring to know that their developing brains are still highly moldable and will continue to grow and transform until age 25 and beyond. This means that providing a safe and nurturing environment with an abundance of opportunities for growth, resilience, and personal development can and will rewire their brains for a brighter future. Therefore, university is the perfect setting to support these young people to achieve their full potential. This introduction to stress, trauma, and adversity can feel overwhelming, but it is important to remember that humans are incredibly resilient and capable of thriving in the face of challenges. by recognizing that individuals are more likely than not to have a trauma history, and the impact it has on who they are and how they think, feel, and behave. Creating a culture of safety and support through a trauma-informed lens can benefit everyone in our community, especially our students.